All right, good evening. I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled Town of Haymarket Planning Commission meeting for Monday, May 17th, 2021. Roll call, please.
Weir.
Here.
Mason. Cottle.
Here.
Howlett.
Here.
Correll. Bayene.
Here.
All right, if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence, please. All right, thank you. You may be seated. All right, first order of business is citizens' time. Seeing no citizens, we will close citizens' time. Okay, minute approval. Do I have to approve the work session on Monday, April 19th, 2021 at 6 p.m.?
I'll move both the work session of April 19 and the regular meeting of April 19.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Ms. Leonard, we just closed citizens' time. I'm willing to open it if you need to, since you made the effort to come out. All right, so we'll keep it closed then. All right, welcome to you folks coming in. All right. All right, agenda items, we're going back to the ZTA. We're going to continue on the work session. And where do you want to pick up? You want to pick up with the buy right for the churches? You want to get Ayush up to speed? Or do we want to just keep going and then we can kind of hit that the last 15 minutes or so?
Let's keep going and come back to that in the last 15 if everybody's okay with that.
That's fine.
I have not been able to pull up that attachment yet.
So you're going to pull it up on the Zoom, correct? Share screen?
Yeah, give me...
Did I send it to the wrong address?
No, I had IT things happen last week, so I'm not on this account. Give me just a second to do that. If you guys will, Bob, or can you pull it up on your Zoom screen and do a shared screen, and then it'll all pop up on here?
Possibly.
He has to be a co-host to share a screen, right?
Okay. You should now have authority to do that.
Okay.
So, Ayush, so that you are caught up with our discussion during the work session, we were discussing the religious assemblies, whether they're by right or by special use permit in the B1, B2, and the industrial zones. We will be coming back to this discussion later on this evening, possibly at a follow-up meeting. There's a little bit of concern on the commission on whether or not we want to leave this as a by right or a special use. The reasoning for leaving it as a special use is so that we can ensure that there's adequate parking, adequate entry, exit points for buildings that are pre-existing, and there can be some control over that situation. There is also a concern of if we allow for these religious assemblies by right, is that going to reduce our commercial tax base significantly if a lot of these larger buildings were to become religious assemblies that are taxed at a much lower rate if taxed at all. So again, we'll come back to this discussion after a little bit.
I can't access my Gmail from this machine.
Okay.
So, I can, if I log out, I can do it, but
send it to haymarkettownhall@gmail.com, and then I can pull it up. Please. Right now, for everybody following along, we are discussing the historic district overlay. Currently, the historic
What
district,
address?
haymarkettownhall@gmail.com. Currently, the historic district overlay is the entirety of the town. We were discussing during the work session
Okay.
if this historic district overlay should be reduced in any capacity, and if so, to what extent. What we're working on pulling up right now is a previous iteration of the discussion regarding the overlay and the zoning text that would go with it from roughly 2012 timeframe. You did haymarkettownhall@gmail.com?
That's what I thought I sent it to. Haymarket Town Hall, 2 T's, right?
Mm-hmm.
@gmail.com.
Yes, okay.
And what you've got is the proposed text, and then underneath that was a draft map, which I think needs to be even further modified, because I don't think it goes far enough. I think it needs some, and then those are examples of other historic districts in other
Okay.
towns underneath it, and I've got another example from 2012 as well.
Excuse me, is there a way you can screen
Yes.
share that on our screen? It's a little hard to see through all this
Yep,
plexiglass.
absolutely. How's that? Can everybody see it now on their screen?
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, Bob, since you sent this over, if you don't mind explaining what these colored areas are, I'll zoom in a little bit more.
I have to go back and look.
So up on the screen, what we have here is 2 larger areas that are done in green, and then we have a larger core area that's in the blue. And
For purposes of this discussion, forget the colors. I don't know why Marchant did that. I would just look at the entirety of the striped area, and I would suggest, well, it's going to have to be moved because the boundary has changed to QBE to incorporate all of QBE. But in terms of what it covers is QBE, the park, which we will now have to amend because there are houses on Blight. So we might have to amend that slightly depending on how many houses on Blight you want to leave them. I mean, we could just leave them all in, but they're part of the HOA, and if the intent was to take the HOA out, I mean, do you want to leave the one on the corner in? Probably. We're going to have to make some, if we want to make it uniform down Washington Street, we're going to have to include a couple of parcels that are also in HOAs. So at least that first house in the bottom of the green, let me blow this up so I get a better.
And if we did that, would the HOA release one, I mean,
It wouldn't have any issue, it wouldn't have any implication for the HOA, it would only have an implication for the town. So like, the way this is drawn, nothing on the south side of Washington Street is covered on the east end. So I would suggest you have to do at least the first house in Green Hill at the corner of St. Paul, Ms. Leonard's property. Each of the first 3 houses in Haymarket Station. It's kind of hard to see unless you blow it up. The townhouses in Green Hill. It's essentially just dropping that green area down into there and covering that so that you've got uniformity on Washington Street. And then working west, I think we're good on Washington Street.
is there any discussion or need to reevaluate any of the houses along Jefferson?
Well, we're going to have to reevaluate the parcel with the Van Meter homes on it. So you would include the parcel with the, the parcel with the daycare, because they've subdivided that, right? So the
Yes.
the front area of that parcel is now subdivided off?
Yes.
Let me see.
So
Let me
the,
pull it up on County Mapper.
so the school sits on its own parcel altogether, which is over in this area. The homes are on a different shaped parcel that kind of come down. There are a couple right here on the main road to get in there. And then you have that small office, retail, mixed-use building that sits up front. I do not recall if Van Meter has completely parceled that one out, or if they're gonna do a parcel
I'm
association.
trying to pull it up now on the county and see if they've subdivided.
When we're talking, just so I'm clear, so when we're talking, and again, we're just talking at this stage, but let's say we incorporated that, first home on Bluff in my neighborhood, Villages of Haymarket. I mean, and let's say 50 years from now, for whatever reason, it's a tear down and rebuild. I mean, would that homeowner or whatever homeowner be stopped from tearing it down? I just want a clarification. Are we talking architectural only? Because there's some buildings in here we wouldn't want, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's gotta be some delineation between the two.
I think
would
that goes to the text, and the text has changed, but we'll get to that in a minute. And yes, they are subdivided out. So there's the parcel for the school, and then the roadway that goes in, and then there's a separate commercial pad next to, what is that house right there on Washington? Yeah, there you go. So they've got, that parcel would stay in, that parcel would stay in, and then the parcel next to it would stay in.
So you have,
This is insane.
so you would have, this is the office structure here. This larger one
Is the daycare.
is the daycare that is currently under review. And then this is that vet clinic. And
Correct.
then you have Haymarket Baptist is here.
But in looking at that, there's nothing historic about that vet clinic.
Yeah, but it's on Washington Street, so I mean, if the intent is to keep the look and cover the architecture along the corridors and the gateways, and you've got it next to the historic church, I think it probably needs to stay in. And we need to add north on Old Carolina, the parcels up to 66. You need to add that. I don't know why somebody took those out.
I'll deal with you at the next meeting. I'll bring 50 people with me.
Let's just continue. Let's just move on, please.
But, I mean, if we use this as the basis and then adapt it to take care of things like, I'm not sure why details for the home was taken out. It shouldn't have been. But take that blue and extend it up to 66. On
That's
that
details.
area. Extend that up.
That's details right there.
Yeah, I don't know why that area, well, actually, that's below the, you can't even see that now because of the bridge deck and the, so maybe that's fine. The area down below, though, on Jefferson Street, I don't know why that's taken out. I mean, I could live with it that way. I've heard people that want to put that neighborhood in it to control what's along Jefferson Street. I'm kind of, I can take it or leave it.
Do we have an actual map color coded of every building that is truly historic.
We have an inventory, not a
We
map.
can get an inventory and it can be updated to include all the ones that have been removed.
I think it'd be really helpful to have a map of the town with every truly historic building shaded in, so we can see exactly where they are.
It's less than a dozen now.
But I think it would be very helpful to visually see exactly where these historic buildings really are.
But I think we're discussing a couple of different things, right? We're discussing maybe possibly the buildings, structures that are considered to be historic, right? And also we're talking about the architecture, right? Wanting to maintain some sort of look and feel of, across Washington Street, what have you. I think that's what
Well, maybe
represents here.
this will explain it better. As it's currently written, the code states, in order to preserve the unique cultural heritage of the town, there is hereby established an overlay district to be known as Old and Historic Town of Haymarket, which shall include all that area which lies within the corporate limits of the town. So that's section A. What was proposed was, in order to preserve the unique cultural heritage of the town, there is hereby established an historic overlay district to be known as the Old Historic Town of Haymarket, and you would strike, which will include all that area which lies within the corporate limits of the town, and replace it with the boundaries of which are designated on the attached map. The boundary of this district shall overlay the boundary of districts as shown on the official zoning map. Development of property lying in this district shall comply with both the requirements of the underlying district and of the overlay district. Where the requirements are in conflict, the requirements of this district shall take precedence. And then it goes to subsection A, this needs to be renumbered, where it currently the only thing it says beyond the entirety of the corporate limits is, prior to the expansion of the historic district, the town shall identify and inventory all structures being considered for inclusion in such district and shall establish written criteria to be used in making such determination. The town shall identify all landmarks and designate by ordinance any building, structure, district, object, or site as part of a local historic district, subject to the soliciting of public input in a manner consistent with the Code of Virginia. Owners of such property proposed for designation shall be given a written notice of the public hearing of the ordinance. And I don't know why somebody put that in there in the first place, because if the entirety of the town is within the historic district, how do you expand it? So that's replaced, and again, we probably have to clean this up because it's 6 or 7 years old. It's replaced by section A. Section A, the historic district boundaries shall in general be drawn so as to include lands closely related to and bearing upon the character of the historic site or sites, thus providing an area needed to control potentially adverse influences. Said boundary shall include land on both sides of a street or streets where desirable to accomplish the preservation objective. The concept of the historic district shall include groupings of structures which have significance relative to their patterns of development and or interrelationships among such structures, while some of the structures might not possess significant merit when considered alone. And then section B, historic boundaries, regulations, and amendments thereto may be initiated by resolution of the town, by motion of the planning commission, or by petition of the owner, contract purchaser, blah, 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 blah. So in essence, what that's saying, if I remember this correctly, is you're designating those areas where you want the historic sort of look to be preserved, and you're identifying, to your point about the historic structures, the areas around historic structures, for example, St. Paul's Church, where you wouldn't want to put a 3-story modern architecture townhouse condominium right next to it, because you want to preserve that look and feel. Is that what you're taking from it, Emily? I mean, if there's no objection, I mean, this is really a work in progress. I mean, the bones of it are there, but I don't know who drew this in 2013. But regardless, it needs to be tweaked. So if there's no objection, I think Emily and I could easily have this tweaked by the next meeting. If everybody's sort of in concurrence with the general principles, we'll tweak the language in the map.
And I'm willing to look, I mean, currently, the whole town is in the historic overlay.
Correct.
So how much burden does that put on town staff? Let's say my house, I want to paint my door colonial blue. I have to go through the HOA to do it.
So the typical process is if you were to, for example, want to paint your door any color, whether it be in our historic guidelines or not, you would first go to your HOA. If you have one, you would get approval, and then you would come to the town of Haymarket, apply for a certificate of appropriateness, and it would be first reviewed by staff, and then it would be placed on the ARB agenda. The problem, for example, just today I received 2 fence applications. The meeting for the ARB is on Wednesday night. However, we have to receive these applications 7 days in advance in order for them to make the agenda. So these residents are now going to have to wait until the middle of June before their application's even heard. And sometimes there is feedback and there's requests for items to be changed. If you have to change something that's already been HOA approved, then it goes back to the HOA. So the resident could be looking at several weeks, if not months, for a decision.
It's an undue burden on the homeowner.
It's more of a burden on the homeowner than it is on the town. I mean, we're collecting a fee to offset the cost of the
Correct.
certificate of appropriateness, but at the end of the day, if there's an HOA in place and the properties are encumbered by the covenants, you know, what business do we have looking at a pergola that you can't see from the street?
I would say none.
Right.
And I absolutely
And
agree.
I will say, to add, you know, for anybody who might be listening, if it is not visible from the public right-of-way, that is not something that would go before the ARB. If it is visible from the public right-of-way and it's outside of the few items that they've given me administrative approval on, then it does have to go to the ARB. Currently, the only items that are for administrative approval are things that could be in your backyard that are completely out of sight from the public right-of-way.
But getting back to the shed example, we have actually had ARB members walk down the street and go, I can see, you know, 2 square feet of your shed, therefore it's visible from the public street, therefore you need to bring it in. And that has caused some issue. I don't know if it's caused it recently, but I know it's caused quite the issue in the past.
It has not been recent.
I think the winery up here kind of hurts the ARB in some respects because that building is so far off anything else that's been approved. I mean,
I don't disagree.
I think it sticks out. I mean, I think any casual person driving up
Right.
Washington Street's gonna go, what happened there? Because I've had people ask me what happened there. It's like, well,
How did we get into the Mission District of LA?
I'm not going in any dish. I'm just saying, I think we need to, it's always been a sticking point as long as I've lived here, like signs and fences and, I mean, I'm all for preserving the old town feel, but, I mean, somebody in the villages of Haymarket, the townhomes that are down there, fronting, you know, next to 66, or the townhomes back in Green Hill, or any home, really, I just,
Well, if I'm hearing you right, you're more concerned about the commercial aspect, right? And I think it's relatively easy to reduce it down to the commercial area and those residential areas where they are directly adjacent to or across the street from what are recognized historic sites, St. Paul's Church, for example.
I would agree, like, the commercial part, like when they built Food Lion, when
Yeah.
they built, you know, that where, my mind went blank, where the bicycle shop or,
You have like the Bloom Building
Right.
and Winterham.
yeah, Foster's. So
Foster's
we don't want
building.
something to come in that sticks out like an all-glass building or something akin to that. But as far as the individual residences are concerned,
Well, if there's no objection, I mean, I think I get where everybody, is everybody on kind of that same page?
For example, like we got the Van Meter project coming up. You're gonna see those houses from Washington Street for the most part, right?
I think they'll be tall.
They're
enough
not gonna be masked by the commercial and by the daycare?
how about the back end of the
Not as much as you would think.
Like the path.
I think you will still be able to look in and see them.
You're gonna see the backside of them though,
That'll-
right?
The one on the right, no. There's one small stick of them.
Yeah, because if you're going down
These
Washington,
four right here are the ones I'm envisioning that you may see. Let me see.
So you wanna leave something like, you wanna leave a circumstance
these.
like that in the map?
well, it just, yeah, I mean, it just seems, you know, we were talking about going down Washington Street and seeing everything being, having that historical look, and then,
Well,
I don't know, I mean, the Van Meter project is dirt piles right now.
right.
You can't,
So maybe a homework assignment, if you guys wouldn't mind, do it in two scenarios. One, walk up and down Washington Street and take in the view from the pedestrian. How far is your eye going off of Washington Street, and what are you really looking at and taking in? And then do it from the vehicular standpoint. As you're driving or as you're a passenger, what is your eye actually able to take in and see and interact with, and see how deep back, do we need to really go?
How's this for a suggestion? Why don't we put together what is essentially the minimal map?
okay.
And then we can add parcels in, or take parcels out. From that, if everybody wants to think about that between now and the next meeting, I mean, putting together a bare minimum to essentially cover the historic district, the commercial area where you want to control the architecture, and those limited areas around what are still existing, what few existing historic sites we have, Bond's house, the firehouse is already covered because it's on Washington Street, St. Paul's, what else do we have? QBE, the frontage, that's really about it, other than Madison Corner and all that stuff, but that's already on the main drag, so that's already going to be covered as part of the commercial area.
Yeah, and as long as you include Jefferson, you'll have Cupcake Heaven's building details,
I mean, covering the
Sonic Lodge.
covering the commercial throughways really takes care of the lion's share of it. It's just picking up the oddball parcels that are left in areas of particular concern. I mean, I'm kind of curious what everybody thinks about Madison Street and Madison Court. I'd kind of like to leave them alone because you can't see them. And I'm not terribly inclined to encumber them any more than they already have been.
Well, isn't what Exit Realty is the only historical building there?
Now, Madison Street's on the other side of the bank.
Oh,
It's the neighborhood that nobody drives
I'm
into.
thinking of Fayette. Okay,
dead ends back there.
yeah.
There's some really old homes back in there, though.
There was one that was recently
Renovated.
renovated and did go through architectural review, and they created quite the little.
You've got several of them there
This is-
you've got several on the east side of Jefferson Street.
Correct. You have some of these here. For example, you do have some that are quite old there on Jefferson.
I've got that map up somewhere.
So this one's saying, so in Prince William County Mapper, if they do not know the exact year it was built, typically they revert it back to 1901. Obviously, they wouldn't do that for something that was built in the 50s, but so this property that I just did a a pool on is 1901, and that's situated right there on Jefferson. Again, this is when you drive by and their front yard is very expansive. You don't look up and necessarily see the house except for in the winter months, and it goes through to Madison. You have neighboring properties,
They're all defaulting 2001.
1901,
Yeah, 1901, excuse me.
yeah.
Yeah, Tony's house is defaulting to 1901 as well.
I mean, is this something that would be worthwhile doing, like a public hearing and getting the public's input?
All this has to go through a public hearing. Every
Yes.
bit of it's
Right,
got to
I
go.
understand, but I mean,
Doing-
even like at a work session or something.
We could set it up for a separate one.
We can certainly set it up for a separate one. We can also encourage doing a charrette where we invite the public up and we really encourage an interactive conversation, something that's a bit more laid back. Everybody would kind of be down here on, level ground. There's not going to be the formality. You're going to have a very active conversation. That's something we can certainly advertise for.
I think that would be extremely helpful.
Okay.
And basically, you have two residents in this town. People been here for a long, long time, and the people that have been here for a very short period of time. So people are going to have varying opinions based upon how long they've lived here. I mean, people that have moved here in the last 4 to 5 years, I mean, everybody's an equal resident, it's not what I'm suggesting, but somebody's been here 25, 30, 40 years that has seen this town just explode. It's going to look at it through a very different lens than somebody that's moved here in the last 5 years. Because, again, when I came through here, you had Gossams. I mean, virtually none of this was here. So I'm going to look at it totally different than, you know what I'm saying? I think it'd be really good, because once we determine this and things move for or against, once you ring the bell, it's never coming back, right?
Would you guys like to, you're correct. So with that, do you guys want to go ahead and set?
We could split this apart from the rest of the amendment.
I think it's something worth pulling in.
We could do,
Okay.
we could
And
do
I
that as a
think-
standalone, because we're gonna have to do this, we're gonna have to do a standalone for the
Sidewalk. I
sidewalk.
think it also should be, this one should be a discussion where we pull the ARB in to join us that
That's
night
fine.
with that whole community discussion.
I think the more people that weigh in on this, the better.
So do we want to aim for that in July, or do we really want to hit the advertising on that and try to get it in early August?
I would do this, my personal thought would be to split this out from the overall amendment that we're doing and make it a separate thing in August. That way, so that you're only focusing on this and you're not,
Yeah, I would say August or September, when people are at least getting back in school to capture the most amount of people.
now I'm looking at the 1954 imagery, Emily, and a lot of those houses on Jefferson are not there. Natasha's is there. If you can zoom in a little bit. You know where Tasha's house is?
I'll do a swipe, 1 second.
I think I used the 54 swipe. You need to change the year. Okay. Go back down.
So on the left screen there, you're going to have 1937, and then on the right, you're going to have 19. So you have in the 30s, just if
That's Tasha's house.
this one, you have that farmhouse I mentioned.
That's Tony's. That's-
This is Mill House.
That's Mill House. The one next to it got torn down and no, that one's still there. That's, maybe not. No, it's gone.
Looks like it was altered.
Huh. And then the next two are vacant. Yeah, Tony's house is there.
So, with this in mind, do you guys want to go ahead and pick a date in August?
Yeah, I would suggest we go later in August once school's back to capture as many people.
What's wrong with it? Why don't we just do it at the regular meeting? And we shouldn't have that much on the agenda in August, should we?
The 16th?
Yeah.
I think that's good. I think as COVID restrictions get less and people being cooped up for months, I think they kind of want to get out and travel. I think it's going to be a heavy travel summer. But if we did it, most people, at least school-age kids, because I think school starts the 23rd, I think most people are going to be back in town.
Okay. I will mark it down and talk to ARB. As a backup date, would August 18th work for everybody? That's a Wednesday, same week, it's just
Yeah,
Wednesday.
I'm out on Wednesdays every
You're out on
Wednesday.
Wednesdays, okay.
Is there anything on the 23rd as a backup date?
That should work right now. So I'll talk with ARB on this Wednesday, and I'll send you guys an email this week, and we'll nail that date down.
Or
And
the
then we'll get
public,
it out in
or
our,
like work session?
yes, and then we'll get it out in our newsletter, that's gonna go out in July. We can discuss if this is something that we wanna send a postcard out for. We'll get it out to the HOAs, but we'll try to get as much information out there as we can.
I would suggest mailing something. I know it's cost, but on something this significant, I think it'd be a good idea for people to pick it up in their mailbox.
Okay.
I mean, what do the rest of you all think?
I agree.
I think it's
I'm
something
fine with it.
worthwhile.
Does everybody still want to see a preliminary next month?
That's fine.
Okay.
Miss Leonard said she's gonna bring 50 people, so.
Well, that would be awesome.
Okay, so moving on, next topic. I'm gonna skip all of that overlay section, historic overlay section for now. That's something we'll come back to you guys with. Signage, is there any appetite to discuss that tonight, or is that something we wanna save for our next work session? I can tell you that we have had, and this kind of plays hand in hand with the ARB, we have had some complaints in the commercial district that our signage is too restrictive and thus not allowing for very standard signs. An example, a certain franchise looking to come in, they want to put a 64 square foot sign up, and our maximum allowable is 18 square feet. So there's quite a big difference there. They're arguing that there's little to no visibility from the street right-of-way up onto the property, especially if these buildings are set a little further back. So if this is something you guys would like to go into tonight, we can. This is going to be very in-depth and should possibly be an entire work session on its own.
If I might, I've actually got a suggestion on this.
Okay.
The sign ordinance has been a problem from day one. Whether some people view it as too permissive and some people view it as too onerous. What I would suggest is, I mean, none of us are experts on signs. I would strongly suggest tasking a review of this to staff with the understanding that there are some things that have to be handled. And I'll give you an example. If you go under 58/15.5 prohibited signs, Q, parasail signs, they're prohibited. How many do we have in town right now? 7?
Quite a few.
So, to my view, if we're going to prohibit them, we need to enforce it. If we're going to allow them, then we need to get rid of it. And if you guys, I mean, you guys get into it with these guys in terms of what is commercially viable from a square footage standpoint. I mean, I have tried to stay out of the sign debate for 20 years because I know just enough about it to be dangerous. And I would, this is in my view, this is a technical sort of thing where you need to get somebody to review it and do an analysis based on what other jurisdictions do, so that we're not creating an overly restrictive sign ordinance with respect to the businesses, but still being able to protect the residents in the historic feel. There's got to be a happy medium. And my sense of what we've got currently is that in the last 2 iterations of the sign ordinance that got rewritten, and it was rewritten twice as a standalone amendment to the zoning ordinance, you had way too many cooks in the kitchen. And that's how you're getting this conflicting stuff, because, you know, you got parasail signs, inflatable signs, there's way too many sign definitions here to my view. And then you've got the matrix for usage in that. My personal sense is this is something that staff should address, bring us their recommendations, and then we walk through it. And this might be another section that like the historic district, we want to strip out of the overall review and come back to at a later date, perhaps even at the same time that we do the historic district, because in a sense they sort of tie together.
I think that's good. I mean, also there's Supreme Court cases over signs as well, because we've discussed that in the past, where certain signs were prohibited, but their case went to U.S. Supreme Court. This has been a sticking point. I've had business owners talk to me down here on this end and said, you know, we have a 2 by 3 foot sign and people don't know we're there. It's hurting our business. I mean, I would agree. I think it's out of our field. I'd much rather, not that we're trying to put it on you, but I think just, I mean, there's a lot of older towns around here. Why should we reinvent the wheel?
Yeah.
I think it's, I mean, even if we could be uniform with them, I mean, every town's a little unique, but, I mean, you have Middleburg, you have Occoquan, you've got Old Town Manassas, you've got enough little towns around here, like the Culpeper District, that I think you could pull in a pretty good cross-section and see what they do, because it has been a nightmare for a long, long time.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that and bring back some suggested edits.
I would also suggest we do the same thing with the landscape, because none of us are arborists. And you know which plants don't work historically in town and which ones do.
Yes, and also I think I would suggest the use and design standards.
Yeah, I mean, just make that comport with what we've already done, because there's some crap in there that needs to come out.
Okay,
And, I mean, that's literally the rest of it.
it is.
And that's been one of the biggest issues, because one of the biggest complaints from business owners is they get conflicting.
Yep.
This group says I could have this sign, this group over here says I can't. I mean, we've heard that for the last 10 years, and they're right. It's through no one's fault. It's just, it's trying to hit a moving target.
Well, one of the problems is what's historically happened is somebody gets their knickers in a twist over the sign ordinance, and then they rewrite the sign ordinance, but they don't make it. They don't make the other sections of the code that enable it match, and that's been a problem for 15 years. I think the only thing we have left then is, I think we need to revisit data centers just to close a loophole that we thought we had closed.
Yes, and so the proposed item is for us to go in and strictly define what we would consider a data center. We are not looking to add this as a by right or a special use in any of our districts, but we are looking to define it so that there is no question from developers that would come into town who may be looking to put a data center in the town. We have a definition, it is clearly classified, and it is not permitted in any zoning district. So that is what we have proposed. We did have some working documents. Sam had worked on looking at local areas surrounding us. We can pull one of their definitions. We were looking primarily at pulling Prince William County's definition and inserting it.
Since I'm real familiar with this topic, this actually became an issue in Prince William County in 2014. And they had a similar issue with their definitions not being definitive enough with respect to communications facilities and data centers. So what they did in 2014, and I helped the planning director at the time write this in conjunction with the data center overlay map, was they changed the definition of computer and network services slightly. The majority of the text remained the same, which was computer and network services shall mean a use involving a building/premise in which a majority of the use is occupied by people and staff engaged in activities related to work that is focused on supporting computers and/or telecommunications and related equipment where information is processed, transferred, or stored. This includes satellite dish facilities, internet service providers, network operation centers, and web teleconferencing facilities, but shall not include a data center. And then we created a separate actual data center definition where a data center shall mean a use involving a building/premise in which the majority of the use is occupied by computers and/or telecommunications or related equipment, including supporting equipment where information is processed, transferred, and/or stored. And I think if we just simply cut and paste those two county definitions into our code, then everybody's on the same page in Prince William County, regardless of whether they come to the town or the county. And there won't be any question as to what the definition is, because people have played games with us in the county, and it's almost gone to court. And I'd rather not stick us in that situation. If we can avoid that circumstance by simply better defining it in the zoning ordinance, I think it'll save everybody a lot of trouble.
And buildings without windows. Nondescript buildings, right?
Actually, no. A lot of them now are being designed with either windows or false facades to make them look like something they're not.
Right.
They're trying to get away from the curtain wall look.
But we're gonna be overrun here. on
Well,
the western end of the county.
the problem with that is you have to have if you're going to allow data centers, you have to have a jurisdiction that is willing to go into detail with respect to what design standards you're going to use in any particular area. Loudoun County found that out the hard way, and they now have a scat of different design specs depending on what area that your data center goes in, and that's if they allow you to do it at all. It's largely limited to the development area in Prince William County, in Loudoun County, east of 15, maybe even further east than that. I think as far west they go is like Ashburn, and then around Dulles, and even parts of the Route 50 corridor. But what they've done in recent years, and by recent probably within the last 4, and I think it's ongoing, is that they have put significantly more and more and more design restrictions on those data center complexes that are either allowed by right or are SUPs, but that are in closer proximity to residential or business-oriented uses, so they don't look as obnoxious as they used to with 4-story curtain walls, sort of what you would see on 66, where they're building that warehouse space on the south side of 66 once you get past Sudley Road. But the question is, do we even have a space large enough in town to accommodate a data center? The answer is probably generally speaking, your bare minimum is roughly 5 acres to fit one, because of lot coverage and that sort of thing. I haven't seen any applications, and from what I understand, the industry isn't looking for any parcels that are smaller in size than, I think the smallest one is 20 acres, but everybody's looking for 100. But, I mean, if we allow data centers, then you have all kinds of other ancillary issues that come up, like power lines and water and noise from backup diesel generators and all kinds of other stuff. So I think if we simply define data centers in the definition section, but don't make it a use at all, then there's no question. We define it, it's not an allowed use because it doesn't appear anywhere in the usage matrix.
All right, that's good information. Can we go ahead and close out the agenda items and go to old business? All right, let's go to old business.
So for old business, we are still working on the Carter School site plan. They do plan to submit their final iteration here to us this week. This will come before the Planning Commission at our next meeting. The town engineer does expect to be able to sign off on this copy of it for approval pending the Planning Commission's approval and all outside agency approvals. We are also currently processing Transform Power Yoga's site plan as well as Robinson Paradise's site plan. So those items are in the works. And that is all we have for old business.
All right, thanks. How about new business?
New business, again, Robinson Paradise has come in. It's kind of old and new. It'll be a refreshed site plan. This is something that was previously approved back in the early 2000s timeframe. They are updating the stormwater work on the site plan, so that will come before you guys probably the end of summer, the way we're tracking.
66.
Yes,
correct.
that is across 66. So as you head north out of town on Jefferson Street, headed towards Heathcote, it would be there on your left. There is a sign, it's the future Walter Robinson Lane. That is that neighborhood that's designated over there. And as for new business, that's everything.
All right. Ayush, you have any ARB updates?
Hang on one second, Ayush. Yep, I can take over that. So ARB will be meeting on Wednesday. They will have one application to review. They're doing a work session training at 6 p.m. for the board. And then they'll also be discussing the town gateway sign program. So the town's looking at putting in our gateway signs. Those are at our main entry points. So Jefferson Street would be smaller signs. Washington Street corridor would be larger signs. We'll also be discussing the need for signs on the town hall building itself. As you guys are probably all aware, the town council did move forward with plans for the DMV Select to go in. So that will be opening July 1. So we're looking at what appropriate signage we need for DMV Select, Town Hall, and the Police Department. So that's another item we're going to be discussing there as well on Wednesday. As for that, they're also looking at the ZTA. That's about it.
All right. Mr. Weir, town council updates.
Following up on her ZTA, we need to set a public hearing for the ZTA on the sidewalks. And do you want to bring that forth at the next meeting?
So a little homework item, if everybody wouldn't mind. It's a very simple one. I have uploaded a document into that Google Drive that's been shared with all of you tonight. It's labeled sidewalk. I've copy pasted the current existing ordinance language. I've highlighted the 2 sections that will need to be changed, and then below that I put the suggested edits. I will be tweaking this probably over the next couple days. Please read through it, make any recommendations, put comments on the Google Doc for me or send them to me. You can also call and tell them to me over the phone, but we can go ahead and bring that forward at the next meeting. I would like to propose a joint public hearing for that, just so that the sidewalk is something that the town council's discussed. You guys have previously discussed switching the material from brick to stamped concrete. So I think it would be appropriate that we could do a joint public hearing with the town council, if everyone's amenable to that.
What are you suggesting for a date on that?
July at the earliest for adequate timing.
Okay.
Specifically, seeing about if we could get it on the July 6th meeting.
Does that meet everybody's timelines?
For,
Construction that's got to occur across the street, both on our property and the hotel?
I will need to follow up with them this week, but I believe that it should.
Okay. That's one item. Council took up both of the Crossroads applications, the two SUPs. It unanimously denied the 2/2 project and returned the Starbucks SUP. Some recommended adjustments. I don't know where he stands on that at this point in time, but I suspect that will be back before council, or that particular one will be back before council beginning of June. At the next meeting, we will probably be discussing a canopy over the playground to protect the equipment there and the kids. With respect to things that are of more immediate concern to this body, we are probably likely to start or initiate engineering of the park sidewalk from Blight to connecting with the Baptist church, and probably going to explore the beginning construction phases or plan for paving and stormwater for this facility. Maybe or maybe not in conjunction with a turn lane. It's still sort of up in the air based on engineering costs and construction costs and a variety of other things, but I'll have some more for that next month. And if anybody's interested, last I heard, we've made 2 offers to the PD, maybe 3 at this point. I haven't talked to Jake since the week before last. But that's where we stand.
All right. Anything else before I call for a motion to adjourn? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.